Hey everybody, this is a really cool video that I've put together today. It's my first time running through using Cohesity to actually do backups and recoveries. I've never even seen the user interface on the Cohesity product before I actually ran through this live. So it's a little like what we do with the build day live, that we show you the real experience. Well, here it is. If you don't bother to do any research or find anything about Cohesity before you go out and deploy it, this is what the virtual appliance feels like to deploy. I was really impressed. I got full backups of a couple of virtual machines, full VM restore and file level restore, all completed inside an hour from starting to deploy the virtual appliance. Really easy to use with no knowledge of the product. I'm sure this rabbit hole of Cohesity goes a long way down, and over the next few months we'll probably spend some time looking at the different parts. But here is my very first experience with using Cohesity. Hi, today I'm going to look at deploying this Cohesity Data Platform Virtual Edition. You're probably more familiar with the Cohesity Data Platform as a bunch of physical appliances, maybe in a scale-out cluster, multiple nodes, those 4 nodes and 2U physical hardware appliances. That's great if you've got a big data center full of servers and you need a large local backup infrastructure and data management infrastructure, but what if you've only got a single ESXi server at each branch and you've got 30 branches you need to protect? Well, one of your options is to use a virtual appliance for that protection, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to deploy out this appliance in a fairly small environment, single ESXi server with a bunch of VMs and some storage. Naturally, there's documentation, so we start with the setup guide. So nice extensive setup guide, lots of sections in here of useful information. You can see there's a fair amount of setup and configuration to be had. You know what, I'm not going to do a lot of reading. You know how I work. I normally give it a try and see how it goes and read the documentation if and only if all else fails. What I do like though is this worksheet. There is a worksheet for deploying the virtual edition where you just enter in the required information, and since usually as I'm testing these things I have to destroy them and recreate them a fair amount, it's useful to have that information. But in a production environment it's useful to have some place to gather that information and potentially use it for documentation later. So in here I'm setting up the IP configuration and setting up the integration with my vCenter and those kinds of things, and how the entire environment is going to be built together. So this document's really useful. I'll refer to it as I go through the building process. And we should take a look at the vSphere environment. Here's my vSphere environment with one ESXi server in the Tauranga cluster and a couple of machines with some data in them. These are the ones I'm going to be messing around with to do backups and recoveries and that kind of stuff. But I should start by deploying the virtual appliance, which I should show you that there's a virtual appliance I've already downloaded. It's 4 gigs in size, along with those 2 deployment documents. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to deploy a new OVF. As usual, find the OVA file, which is sitting in my C temp directory, and then go through the validation processes. Let's call this guy Cohesity with a capital C because, you know, trademarks and all of that. We'll put it in the Tauranga data center. We'll just put it directly in the data center. All of my other things are actually inside of folders, but the ones I'm using for this are just directly in the data center. Single ESXi server in this data center as if it was a remote data center. Maybe there's a corporate environment as well, and you can see I have another data center called Lab. It's a cluster of 4 Intel NUCs running vSAN, and it's a little underpowered for doing anything enterprisey. Okay, what are we going to do? Deploy it out, thick provision 60 gigs. Seems a bit small because it is a backup appliance. The thing is that this appliance doesn't actually contain the storage in order to hold the backups. You need to add those storage disks afterwards. So we need one high IOPS performance metadata disk, suggested size 50 gigabytes with small, and one data tier disk size between 60 and basically a terabyte in size. let's go. Small size, that's going to be sufficient for backing up a few virtual machines. Where am I going to put the actual boot disk for this appliance? Put it here on my SATA SSD. The VMs that I want to back up are sitting on my NVMe SSD. Networks, everything is going to connect to my Demitas network. There are two network options in here, and later when we're configuring these static IP addresses, we'll see that one is used primarily for doing the backups and managing the appliance, and there's a second one that is used for replication. So go through our customization, setting our default gateway and our networks. So referring back to my worksheet, I said I was going to be using my normal network subnet, 21 for the IP address, /24 for the subnet mask, and .254 is my gateway machine. So in the order that I think is a little bit backwards, we'll enter that. Gateway first, network IP address is my IP address, and subnet mask. And there's my /24. If I have my secondary network in use, then I could set the same values for the secondary. I'm not using secondary network. I have a fairly flat network structure in my branch office here. And then it says away we go, ready to do it. Hit finish on that. And what we should see is somewhere in here, there we go, deploying out the OVF. Now that's going to take probably 5 minutes, and there's not a lot of reason for us to sit here and watch it in the video, so I'll pause the video, at least pause the recording, and through the magic of restarting recording, you'll see that completed. Well, that was quicker than I thought. Only 3 minutes to deploy the appliance. Next thing to do is to add those additional disks to it. So we're going to come in here and hit edit settings and add on some hard drives. We need to add 2 hard drives. There we go, 2 hard drives. First one at 50 gigabytes, and the second one could be anything up to a terabyte, but I'm going to make it just 500 gigabytes because I don't want to use up all of my space in here. A couple of things to do with those disks though. They are supposed to be independent, persistent. They are also supposed to be on separate SCSI controllers so we get more disk queues for them. Thick provision lazy 0 is good because then we know we're not going to run out of space as we fill these, at least on the data store. So again, independent, persistent, the final SCSI controller. And you can see those 3 SCSI controllers up here are all paravirtual SCSI, so that maximizes our potential throughput. Doesn't make a lot of difference here where I've got a single SATA SSD underneath, but that paravirtual SCSI is really important when we're sitting on a fiber channel SAN or some other multi-disk environment. Power on my virtual machine. And let's watch it boot. What we should see is a fairly normal Linux type boot. And things should come up to a usable system fairly quickly. Okay, now the machine has completed its boot, but we don't do the management through here. Interesting, it's come up with a blank node IP address. Let's just see if that has come up. There, come here, come here. Okay, it doesn't currently have an IP address assigned. There we go, now it's got its IP address, so some of the initial configuration must have happened. We can grab that IP address, copy it, and then open up a new tab and paste it in. And it's not ready yet. Got to keep waiting for the startup to happen. Okay, now it's started up. Proceed through, and here we go. Here's a Cohesity dashboard wanting to talk to us. I wonder if we've got a default password defined in here. Oh, web client, there we go. This is where we should have read the setup guide. So there's our adding additional disk storage, power on the virtual machine, find the IP address, vSphere availability settings. Okay, we should probably set that. Set the availability. All right. Oh, there we go. Admin. Do not use Internet Explorer. Here's Chrome. So username and password are admin and admin. And we'll just run through the wizard. Cluster name is going to be the Cohesity cluster. I'm fairly sure co-cluster is what I set in the worksheet. So IP address, and then further down, vCenter server defined. Yep, co-cluster. And so I should have DNS to go with that on my nice lazy DNS name. Cluster subnet gateway is that 192.168.111.254. Cluster subnet mask, again /24. Now this cluster information will be really important if we were doing the normal multi-node configuration, but where we've only got a single node, well, there's only a single node to play with, so we can use the same configuration that we entered in that deployment wizard. But the fact that this isn't customized to the virtual edition gives you the indication that this is absolutely the standard Cohesity data platform just running inside a virtual machine. DNS servers we do need to set because we didn't set them at deployment time, and the NTP server the same. I always use the same machines for that. I believe cocluster.d.local is going to be the same. So that should resolve to my current IP address. There it is. So co-cluster does resolve back. Cool, we'll create a cluster then. Alright, now it's completed. Waiting for the web server restarts takes a few minutes, so we'll give it a few minutes. Alright, after those few minutes it's come up just fine. I'm going to log in again with admin and admin, the default credentials. And it says, do we agree to the license agreement? Yes, of course. Everything that Mahit asks for, we agree to. License key. Bear with me as I put my license key in. Now that the license key has been entered, what do we see? Well, not a lot in here because we haven't protected anything. At least there's no errors showing. I think this dashboard's going to be much more interesting once we've actually got some things protected. So following the wizard, let's look at protecting something. Let's protect a virtual server. Register a source. That sounds like a good plan. vCenter host name is at vc.d.local. Very inventive names. Username, I'm going to use administrator at d.local, so I use my domain admin account. Really shouldn't be using that one. I've got to remember what the password for that one is. That's what it is. Should probably be using a dedicated service account, but I haven't got one set up at the moment. What do I want to back up? Let me see. I got it as a data center. I don't need the lab data center. I'm working in the Tauranga data center. One ESXi server, 12 VMs. And I wanted to back up my valuable server and my server with data. Cool. Name it. Let's call this a basic backup test. And a policy. I guess I'd better have a backup policy in here. Backup daily, retain for 30 days. Backup every 7 hours, retain for... Well, so that we get something reasonably quickly, I'm going to go with the gold backup. Backup hourly, retain for 2 days. And store it on my standard dedupe domain. Sounds good. Some details in here. App consistent backups. Yeah. 60 minutes for incrementals. Full every 2 hours. Yep, sounds good. Go do it. Okay, job's been created. Nice. 2 objects protected, 480 gigs of data. Nice. Alright, well I'm probably going to need to leave this for a few minutes in order for it to be showing us some backups. So why don't I leave it for 15 minutes and see what we get when we come back. Alright, so now 12 minutes later, the backup is completed. We have no currently running backup jobs and 2 protected virtual machines. You can see now we've got an uptick in the physical space that's been used, and the I/O throughput and the IOPS reported. Whole 2 IOPS right at peak. Looks good. Looks like we've been successfully backing things up. We have 42 gigabytes of data backed up, and of that we're now consuming 11 gigabytes of underlying physical space. There's a lot of commonality between the 2 VMs because they were both deployed from the same template, and one has a small amount of additional data added to it. Alright, well, that looks fairly cool, fairly simple. Lots of places we could go in here. I think that's probably for another time. I think what I want to do is something fairly brutal. I'm going to delete some data out of one of the virtual machines, and I think I'll just delete the other one completely and see what the recovery is like. So my valuable server, I'm just going to power him off. Go on, power it off. Because I'm a junior admin who has no clue what he's doing, I'm now going to delete this valuable server from the disk. That might cause me a problem. While I'm here, I'll also dig into the console of this server with data. And what we should see, where am I? That's where I am. Different lab environments, different passwords. And this one is my actual at-work lab, so it doesn't use my loosely held passwords. So in here we have a directory with a bunch of files in it. So we've got some legit documentation that's been downloaded from VMware's documentation website, and I'm just going to delete every single Adobe Acrobat document in here because I want to get rid of Acrobat. At least that's what I'm thinking as I make this mistake. Shift delete, permanently delete 76. Yes, I would. Alright. Now we have that oh no moment when we find that all of our our PowerPoint documents on our documentation share are gone. Again, junior admin was making mistakes. Cool. Let's see how we can go about recovering that. Once again, I could read the instructions. But let's see what happens if I just come into this recover VMs option in the menu. I think it was called a server. There we go, server with data. No, server with data is not the one that we deleted. Let's there we go. Basic backup test. 2 VMs in the run, valuable server, server with data. So it's called a valuable server. Let's search for him that way. There you go, there's my valuable server, 40 gigabytes inside. Add VM to cart. Select VM and go to step 2. Yes, I want to recover as valuable server. Using the latest, recover to the original location. Keep the original network, yep. Cool, there's some nice options in here about renaming and that kind of thing, but the default is I just want to get this VM back because I deleted it by accident. And so away we go. So it says it's running, valuable server is restoring. So I'd expect this to take more than a couple of seconds to copy 40 gigs of data out, so we'll just speed that process up. And what do you know? Backup completed. So that took, what, 4 minutes to, restore completed. 4 minutes to complete the restore. Got some details down here. There we go, 4 minutes 32. Did all those. For start time at 4:32. It's now 4:37, so it took about 4 minutes to complete. What we should see then is our valuable server here again. And look at that, it's ready to log on. And we have our valuable server back ready to operate. Log into him. And actually, come to think of it, there was nothing interesting to see inside our valuable server. It was just a machine. The one we logged into earlier was the valuable server with data. Of course, unexpected shutdown. That's usual when you're recovering from a backup because the machine was not shut down when it was backed up. So valuable server is back. Excellent. Didn't take us very long at all. Let's go back to our cluster and let's try this time recovering files or folders, and that was with server with data. In fact, it was d:/shared/star.pdf. How about that? Oh, look. Lots of them. So, if I select, what are my options? So I can't actually choose an individual. I can choose to recover to server. Okay, let's not do it that way. Search by server or protection job. Well, let's wildcard search and get, oh, this was server with data. Server with data, D drive, shared. Okay, so this is great if I know where things came from. And the search method is going to be great if you get the usual user says they can't remember what it was called, but they know when it was removed. So from there, can we go all the way to the end? Yeah, we'll go with that, and we'll add the whole lot to the cart. Save and continue. So I could download them directly here and maybe zip them up and email them to the user. But what I want to do is to restore them in place. So let's save and continue, recover files. Okay, to restore into the machine, to original location, I better set some credentials. So that would be administrator at d.local with the password that now is coming natural. Recover to original location, overwriting the existing. Yeah. Okay. So now we'll recover those files. So that should recover a bunch of files. And you know, I should have checked how many PDF files I deleted, but I didn't. Again, we won't wait for the progress bar at normal speed. We'll speed it up and cut to the good stuff at the end. Okay, well that happened pretty fast. Recovery was pretty quick on that one. Again, minute, maybe 2 minutes. Let's see what we see in the way of subtasks. We just have some message about it. Now, did we only get a single machine, only one object restored? So I've done something wrong in my selection of the files. So if I come back into machine, all I've got is that workspace air resource. So I've done the file selection wrong. So let's go to recovery. Okay, that's my list of recoveries. So let's recover files or folders. We will browse. And then go into that shared folder again. So I am going to need to individually add. I can't bulk add. I do need to individually add the files in here. Which, for normal kind of use case where the whole directory had been deleted, I don't want to remove the HTML because it's only PDFs that have been messed up. So for my particular scenario, this is going to be kind of laborious and I will be cursing the idiot user who deleted all of these files. But I can easily enough go through and add the individual files. If it was a whole directory, I'm sure I could have just taken the entire directory and added that. But I've got a bunch of files to restore this time. There we go, now I've got a bunch. Okay, everything's finished. Now if I go back into my server with data console, yeah, got a bunch of PDF files have been restored. Cool. Well, that really seems to be a pretty simple product overall, fairly easy to work with the recovery, fairly easy to go through the deployment process. Didn't take a lot of time or effort or any specialized skills or knowledge to make the whole thing work. So that's pretty impressive for a quick setup and easy to use. I know that I'm only just scratching the surface, but the deployment process and the ability to back up and recover pretty fast is cool. I imagine I will be making a few more videos talking about Cohesity and some of the more intricate features and functionality, and maybe I'll even read some documentation so I know what I'm doing before I begin. That's it for this time. Stay tuned for more videos.